We have no commandant of the Marine Corps.
Yes.
We don't have, or are about not to have, a chief of naval operations.
Mm-hmm.
We are about not to have an Army chief of staff.
We have more than 300 positions that are unfilled, including the commandant of the Marine Corps, including leadership roles at military installations at home and abroad, that are unfilled because of one senator, which I know is where you're going with this, Steve. It is outrageous. It is shameful. It is ridiculous. And there's two pieces to it. One, it is impacting our readiness, right? When service secretaries have to write a joint op-ed as some sort of call to, please understand how difficult and how bad this is, like, that's a ridiculous state of affairs, right? They should be focused on the job that they have at hand, but instead they're having to raise the alarm because apparently not enough people are listening about what it is that Tuberville's doing and the detriment to our military readiness. And I could go on about the detriment to our military readiness. Then there's the very real impact on the men and women who have sacrificed, like, in countless ways, everything from, injury in combat and loss of their brothers and sisters in arms, to missed birthdays and missed holidays and time away from loved ones and milestones, not just when they're in war zones, but when they're on long-term TDY or when they're PCS places that they can't bring family members. And now we have, at this point, more than 300, by the end of the year, be more than 600 people who are in limbo. Are they going to get that next promotion? They've missed PCS season. Anybody with kids in school, kids who are presumably on their maybe 7th, 10th, 15th move throughout their childhood, didn't get to move in the summer. Maybe they'll move, maybe they won't, right? Like, it's unbelievable the disdain that Tommy Tuberville is demonstrating for the people who give themselves to our military, as well as his overall disdain for our national security. And he keeps coming back with, it's not a threat to national security. Well, literally, when service secretaries are writing op-eds to make the argument about how it is a threat to our national security, like, believe them. And what the hell does he know? Like, yeah, I'll stop.
I think so. And then here's my question, because it becomes a political question, right? So the NFL season is upon us, right? So the great theater of performative patriotism, right, is about to begin anew. We will see the giant 100-yard flags. We'll see military flyovers and all of it. Without regard to any of the underpinning ideas of the Republic, a high sugar jello, right? A diet of pure crapola. And I guess it's a political question. And I tend to think about these things through the prism of my age, right? And between our age group, right, mid-40s, early 50s, the people we're talking about in the military, right, lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier general, major general. Let's say you have a woman Army colonel, right, whose husband is moved 10, 11 times, has a job, has some flexibility in the job, but that guy has a career that might be 25 years into it, that he has to move where his wife, the colonel, is supposed to move to. She's been promoted. She has an assignment, but she can't lawfully engage in the assignment because she's above a rank that requires a Senate confirmation. So you've created this traffic jam, as you said, that will exponentially grow now. It's at 300. A couple months from now, it'll be at 600. And then it'll start to demonstrate the miracle of compound interest, right? We'll go from 600 to 1,200, and we will very quickly have a force that is not ready to fight.
And Steve, what happens to that 40 to 45-year-old who's hit their 20, right? Who can easily pivot out, can go, frankly, make a lot more money in the
money
sector, can have a lot more home life stability in the private sector, is going to be headhunted as soon as they come out with their military credentials and their incredible experience of leadership and all that, their resume would contain. And yet, like, what are we, the United States of America, demonstrating as our commitment to those who say, you know what? I could leave after my full 20, proud of the work that I've done, the sacrifices I've made, the service that I have demonstrated, and I can go do my second chapter, and it'll be great. And I'll take family vacations and I'll make a shit ton more money, right? And now those same folks are watching the people who made the commitment to stay or are making the commitment to stay, the folks who say, no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to aspire to be, and I'm going to keep leading. And my commitment is to the soldiers and the airmen and the Marines and the sailors behind me. And they're watching those folks be part of that traffic jam. They're watching spouses lose out on jobs. They're watching kids get screwed with in their ability to move between schools, right? They're watching that happen, and they're watching it as some performative level of just, who knows what is his actual goal and intention of one random senator, right? They're watching all of that is happening because of one senator. And frankly, who are the Republican senators who are railing on him, or Republican House members who are saying, cut it out? You are hurting people. You are hurting our military. You are hurting our readiness. And the impact of this will be felt in years into the future, right? So no one is speaking up for them, right? They are watching, like, the folks who are a couple years ahead of them at the academy, or the folks who are their mentors, or in many cases, some of their own circumstances, they are watching the impact of one man's kind of, culture war drama impact the entirety of the United States military.
So I want to ask you a question, and it is not aimed at getting you in trouble, though I think you probably don't care with your reputation for being a straight shooter. So I spent a long stretch of my career working in Republican politics. If it was a Democratic senator who was doing this, the senator and the entire party would have been crucified and would have broken very, very quickly. It would have been a bloodletting. What is wrong with the Democratic Party politically that the institution, not Abigail Spanberger, not Chuck Schumer, I'm talking about the party, I'm talking about that amorphous whatever, why can't the party organize, target, attack, and destroy on an issue like this, which I would argue is a skill that's going to be necessary to deploy in 2024?
So I'm going to give you two different answers there, right? What I would love to believe, and I can't speak for the Senate. Let's pretend in some fake scenario that, this is, well, even if it's, Senate that's doing the confirmation, if this were a Democratic senator, like, you would have, you'd have to wait in line to assail that person, right? There would be teams of Democrats saying, we will fund your primary opponent. We will campaign against you. You do not deserve to be in the United States Senate. This is disgraceful. This is terrible. We are taking you out. So for starters, I would say there's an entire problem, and I'll get to the Democratic Party in a minute, right? Like, we would turn on our own and punch them in the face over this, right? And I can see my colleagues in my mind who would be right there with us, right? You'd have to use a wide shot camera, because everybody would be ready to just say, we're done. This is ridiculous. year out, like, change your position, right? And then there'd be all the peer pressure behind the scenes that Democrats are really good at. And if there were ever a Democrat doing this, like, it would crumble really quickly, right? And so that's a question of, like, why are they not doing that on the Republican side of the aisle, right? Why are they not coming to him and saying, listen, you're a United States senator, you're not a football coach anymore. Like, you are hurting national security. You fix this, you stop this, or we will one by one start denouncing you. We will one by one start pummeling you. We will find a primary opponent, we will fund him, and you are out, right? So first question is, why are the Republicans not doing that?
Of course. Because, and let me answer that one, right? Because they're bad, right?
And they don't have to, because they have this mantle. People think they're good on military issues. They don't vote for the PACT Act. Well, some do, right? There's plenty of people that get to vote and say, well, I don't really like it, had a semicolon here or an asterisk there, so I voted against the legislation, which then, they'll show up talking about all the good things that legislation they didn't vote for does for veterans, right? And that's just an accepted reality that,
right. It's like life's not fair, but there can be no expectations on them, right? Yeah. I mean, when you've taken a walk on the idea of we choose our leaders through an election, which de facto through a mix of complicity, cowardice, and silence, right? That is the de facto position of the party, right? So there are no expectations for that,
so
right?
Then
so
to get back to the answer your question about Democrats, I think that what continues to be a problem is Democrats are too nice, right? And I say that as I'm a very kind, like, eminently nice person. At least I try to be. But where we could be in this circumstance, just ringing the alarm bells, just pounding in a coordinated message, right? And you see organizations doing it. Vote Vets is a veterans organization that supports Democratic veterans running for office, or those who support veterans running for office, et cetera. Like, we have seen them take this issue on. And there are, entities within politics doing it. But what we're not seeing is a coordinated effort, certainly within the United States Senate, where I think it would be most appropriate, to just pound on this every single day. Because you're right, if this were a Democratic senator, like, I mean, you'd get run over on the way for all of the Republicans who would want to be speaking to a microphone about how awful this is. And yet, while there have been many senators who have spoken up, it isn't in the same coordinated, how's your day? Like, would you like cream in your coffee? Let me tell you about this Democratic senator, right? Like, any question asked would be, don't answer, pivot towards talking about how horrible this, imaginary Democratic senator is. Whereas Democrats, like, are just not taking that, like, aggressive stance. And there's a whole host of reasons that perhaps it's the case, but I'm ringing the alarm bells. I'm railing on this issue. I welcome anybody and everyone who wants to join me to do so. But it also gets to the fact that again, I'm not a member of the United States Senate, but if I were queen for the day, I would love to see just an entire Senate floor full. Just, we're here to vote. Like, we're here to ensure our national security. Like, we're not leaving till that gets done. And I will say that that's a little bit of a difference between the House and the Senate, because there's certainly been times that, in the House, both Democrats and Republicans have an inclination to be a little bit more demonstrative with the way they make points.
It's so funny when you're in the fight and in the back and forth of a campaign, and especially when you think you're just absolutely on the right side. I just, like, if I was back in campaign politics, right, in Washington, I know that I would walk into a room in the Democratic Party and I said, we're just going to have a fun week, right? We got America's dumbest senator by far, which is saying something, right? Holding up hundreds and hundreds of military promotions, weakening the national defense of the country. Let's go.
And if you said nothing, you agree with him.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you never miss a video. Also, for more content just like this, please consider joining our Warning Premium community. You can find out more in the description below.